Hello guys, and Russian banks shut a record number of branches in 4 years. These 4 years is not an ordinary period, that is the duration of the blitzkrieg that failed and turned into exhausting war not just for Ukraine but also for the Russian Federation. So according to Izvestia, and that is one of the biggest Russian newspapers, a supporter of the Kremlin regime and known since times of the USSR, so according to Izvestia, 1,700 branches were closed in 2025 alone. Most of these branches belong to prominent Russian banks, which only proves that even these pillars of the Russian banking system cannot survive under such pressure of the war economy. For example, Sberbank had to close 900 branches, that is almost 1,000. And this bank is super important for the remote regions of the Russian Federation where people rely on its services. No, this is not a digitization process because in Russia they keep shutting down internet, and on contrary, more and more people rely on the physical branches. Thus, the only reason for such shutdown is definitely lack of money in the banking system. And another Russian bank, Gazprom, speaks about the danger of the National Wealth Fund exhaustion in 2026. And right now, that is literally the only resource that keeps both the Russian military budget and the Russian banking system afloat. So let's continue our Russian economy lesson, and trust me, it will be exciting. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine. And if you want to see the defeat and demilitarization of Russia, subscribe. We discuss very important topic in our community and share these videos to spread the truth. Stop learning the information from the Russian sources, but even Russian sources like the newspaper Izvestia speaks about these huge problems with the shutdowns of the Russian bank branches. That is never a sign of the strength or health of the financial system, and it has nothing with digitization or similar processes that might potentially take place in your country or in Ukraine that became super digitalized during these years of the full-scale war. That's the only way to survive sometimes when you don't have electricity, when you don't have connections. But 1,700 banks were closed in 2025. And in general, before the start of the so-called special military operation, Russia had something like 30,000 branches all over their vast territory, and now it is close to 23,000. And you know that Russia is very big, actually the Russian Federation. It's different from Russia, but that's a different topic. And many people in remote regions of the Russian Federation are very dependent on these physical branches. And the main provider of banking services in such remote regions is Sberbank. So Sberbank closed like 900 branches. 900 branches in very different parts of the Russian Federation, and we're talking only about 2025. And right now, people rely on these physical branches. First of all, because Russia has a lot of internet outages and ranks #1 country in 2025 for the amount of time that ordinary apolitical Russians did not have access to internet. And second, you know that Russia is a country that controls everything very closely, that follows every step of its population. That's why for you to be able to use any digital services, you first have to come, register, provide all the information about yourself in a physical branch. So closing them is a way to prevent people from getting their access to their money that they put in banks. You know that at the beginning of 2026, literally millions of Russians were banned from using their cards by ATMs in very different regions of the Russian Federation. The Kremlin wanted to describe it as a way to care for their security, for a potential fraud, but the very fact that it was such a centralized, organized, and massive decline in services only proves that Right now, Putin and his mafia is looking for every way to prevent people from getting their money out of the banking system that I sense is already empty, because their national wealth fund is also already almost empty. Recently, we've spoken about 71% of their physical gold reserves that was sold during these 4 years of exhausting war. And now one of Russia's prominent banks, another one, Gazprom, that sound just like a company that was once the richest in Russia, the symbol of this abnormal Russian wealth, natural resources, and now is a bankrupt. So connected to this company, Bank Gazprom predicts that their national wealth fund will be completely exhausted. I was looking for that phrase, completely exhausted by the end of 2026. And I'm not surprised, taking into account that now even the Central Bank of Russia speaks about the selling of these golden reserves and so on. But the very fact that it will be empty means no more money to fuel into the exhausted war economy, federal budget, into the banking system, because many of the state owned banks right now survive just because this national wealth fund gives them money by selling physical gold. And that was the main instrument of the Kremlin to compensate the losses in revenue of their oil and gas export. And you know that because of the Ukrainian drone sanctions, because of the economic sanctions, their revenues of exports of gas and oil dropped tremendously. And all that national wealth fund, it consisted of excess of income that they were accumulating, believing in a blitzkrieg. And I'm sure they had enough for a 3-week war, but they don't have enough for a 4-year war. And these signs, they are visible inside Russia, but now they start speaking about them in the Russian media. And all of you know that Russia is a country where the censorship is very strong, where they always lie about the state of their well-being. Just before the collapse of the USSR, the party was reporting how everything is super well. And a similar situation is happening right now, but branches are closed. Banks are talking about problems openly, like Gazprom, like Sberbank. And it's pretty obvious, like with a lot of oil refineries not working, with Russia selling its oil to save it from exploding on the territory of the Russian Federation. They sell their oil for prices that are 2 times lower than they expected, than they put into their budget. And even now, they planned the price of barrels close to like $59, and they are very lucky if they sell it at 39. And it will only get worse. So trust me, Russia can be defeated, Russia will be defeated, and most importantly, this process has already started. And to follow these updates, to see the signals like 1,700 branches of the Russian banks closed during just 1 year, subscribe, because I believe you need to know more truth from this inside Russia media that now slowly begins revealing the truth about the state of economy, about the state of the Russian army. Watch a new video on Anna Danilchuk channel, and of course follow me on X, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, Discord and Substack if you love reading weekly newsletters. Check the merch shop, the link in the description. And thank you so much for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channels. But most importantly, thank you for standing with Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!